Okay, let's be real. We are all living through an age of insane information overload, and our brains, well, they're struggling to keep up. In his incredible book, The Organized Mind, neuroscientist Daniel Levitin gives us the owner's manual we all desperately need to think clearly in a world that feels like it's designed to distract us. Do you ever get that feeling? You know, that constant, nagging sense that you're fighting a losing battle? You're trying to sort through this fire hose of facts, notifications, and opinions, all while, trying to remember where you put your keys. You are definitely not alone. And that feeling of being completely overwhelmed, it's not some personal failure. As Levitin shows us, it's actually rooted deep in our biology. So, to really get a handle on this, we first need to understand the sheer scale of the problem. Our brains today are dealing with a cognitive load that is fundamentally brand new in human history, and frankly, it's pushing them right to their absolute limits. And look, this isn't just a feeling. It's the actual reality of modern life. Just think about it for a second. A few decades ago, specialists handled so many of our day-to-day tasks. Travel agents booked our flights. Typists prepared our documents. But the information age? It's offloaded all of that work and more directly onto us. We're now our own researchers, our own schedulers, our own administrators, all on top of everything else we're supposed to be doing.
And every single one of those little tasks comes at a real biological cost. I mean, our neurons are living cells. They need oxygen and glucose to function. So when we force them to process this endless stream of information, from the totally trivial to the absolutely crucial, they just burn through that energy. This is why information overload literally makes you tired. Your brain is just exhausted.
So, what is actually happening on a neurological level? Well, the cause lies deep within the very architecture of our brains, specifically in the system that evolved to manage our focus. And here's the catch. It's an incredibly powerful system, but it was not built for the digital age.
Levitin explains that our brain has this dedicated attentional system. The best way to think of it is like a director in your head, constantly deciding what gets the spotlight. It's responsible for everything from deep focused work on a single project to letting a critical alert like a fire alarm break right through your concentration.
And this system has 4 key modes. First, you've got the creative, mind-wandering mode. That's your daydreaming state where great ideas pop up. Its total opposite is the central executive. That's your focused, get-it-done taskmaster. And then, guarding the gates, you have the attentional filter, which decides what information actually gets in. And finally, moving between all of these is the attentional switch, the little mechanism that flips you from one state or one task to another. Okay, now that we know how that system works, we can finally talk about its greatest enemy, multitasking. We demand that our attentional system juggle a dozen things at once, which Levitin proves it was never, ever evolved to do. So let's look at the real cost of that.
And let's be clear, this is not just an opinion. This is hard neuroscience. As MIT's Earl Miller puts it so bluntly, we're just not wired for it. When we think we're multitasking, what we're actually doing is just using that attentional switch to bounce back and forth really, really rapidly between tasks. And that constant switching has some serious consequences.
What kind of consequences? Get this. Research has shown that trying to multitask can reduce your effective IQ by a full 10 points. To put that into perspective for you, the cognitive loss is actually greater than that from smoking marijuana. And what's wild is that just the awareness of an unread email sitting in your inbox is enough to cause this drop. And this has a real physical energy cost. I mean, your brain runs on glucose, and focused mental work already burns a surprising number of calories. But that task switching, the core of what we call multitasking, it burns through that fuel so fast that we end up feeling exhausted and totally disoriented. We are literally depleting our brain's most precious nutrients. It also triggers this dangerous chemical cocktail in your brain. Multitasking floods you with the stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, and at the same time, it creates a dopamine addiction feedback loop. See, every time you switch tasks to check a text or an email, you get a tiny little dopamine hit, a reward. This actually trains your brain to lose focus because it's rewarding you for seeking novelty instead of staying on task. All right, so that was the bad news. The good news? Our brains already have some incredibly powerful built-in solutions. And the first one involves tapping into a skill we've been honing for tens of thousands of years: categorization. You know, this drive to sort things is actually a prehistoric survival skill. Our ancestors had to group the world into essential categories: predator versus prey, edible versus poisonous. Their lives depended on it. thousands of years later, writing created the first external memory systems. And today, we're using that same ancient biological drive to try and organize the absolute chaos of our digital world. Now, the crucial point here is that creating categories isn't just about being tidy. It's a fundamental biological process that dramatically reduces mental effort. Think about it. When we create a dedicated drawer for all our baking supplies, we don't have to remember 10 different locations for 10 different things. We just have to remember one category. It's basically our brain's ultimate efficiency hack.
So building on that, the second part of the solution is to take things a big step further. We need to stop using our brains like messy storage closets and start using the world around us as an extension of our minds. In other words, it is time to offload your brain.
Let's just be honest with ourselves. Our internal memory is, well, it's faulty, it's easily distracted, and it has a very, very limited capacity. Cognitive psychology has proven this over and over again, but external systems, whether it's a simple notepad or a powerful app, they're reliable. When we offload information to them, we free up our precious mental resources for what they're actually built for, thinking, creating, and solving problems.
And these brain extenders can be anything. They can be super high-tech, like calendars and apps on your phone, but they can also be incredibly low-tech, physical index cards, a specific hook you always hang your keys on, or a dedicated drawer just for your bills. Levitin even includes other people in this, through a cool concept called transactive memory, which basically means just knowing who in your network has the information you need so you don't have to store it yourself.
So all of this brings us to the final, crucial question. The ultimate takeaway from Levitin's work is this. Your mind is for having ideas, not for holding them. By creating these external systems, you free your brain to do its most important work. So take a look at your own mental clutter right now. What's the very first thing you're going to get out of your head and into the world?